Starting with China, China has edged forward in its commitment to lower carbon emissions, issuing a string of promises that experts say fall short of action. China has vowed to cut carbon emissions by a majority of 65% by the year 2030. President Xi Jinping made this announcement at the virtual Paris Climate Summit on Saturday.
宣布中国将提高国家自主贡献力度，采取更加有力的政策和措施，力争2030年前二氧化碳排放达到峰值，努力争取2060年前实现碳中和。
Being the biggest climate emitter and polluter in the world, the announcement made by the Chinese president puts him in a tight spot as he has been making similar claims since 2015. However, reality seems to be very different from the strategy China seems to be adopting. Initial months of COVID-19 did prove to be a respite for China in terms of carbon emissions, but coal and cement producers bounced back faster than anticipated. The UN said this week that global carbon pollution fell a record 7% in 2020 due to pandemic response measures that curbed free movement in electricity demand. But it is said that the emissions of China, the first to lock down and reopen its economy after the virus emerged in Wuhan city of a year ago, fell just 1.7% as Beijing sought a swift rebound from COVID-19.
在此，我愿进一步宣布，到2030年，中国单位国内生产总值二氧化碳排放将比2005年下降65%以上，非化石能源占一次能源消费比重将达到25%左右，森林蓄积量将比2005年增加60亿立方米，风电、太阳能发电总装机容量将达到12亿千瓦以上。
Although it proves as an incremental step towards the right direction, climate experts have raised concerns over lack of short-term plans over the target as pledged by China. Climate experts have also raised an alarm over China's coal-burning practices, which continues to remain inconsistent with the Paris Accord. China had made similar claims back in 2015, along with the promise to increase the share of non-fossil fuels in primary energy consumption to around 20% and to increase the forest stock volume by around 4.5 billion cubic meters on 2005 levels. One major obstacle to China's climate goals is its thousands of coal plants. Reaching the goal will require a tectonic shift in the country's energy system and installation of huge amounts of zero-carbon energy sources. And for more on this, political and economic commentator Aina Tangen is joining us live from Beijing. Thank you so much for joining us. Such claims, as we just mentioned, have been made earlier as well. What can you tell us about the strategy in place this time?
Well, actually, China has exceeded its goals in terms of the Paris Climate Accord, so it's not a situation where China has been making false claims. In terms of putting money behind this, they've already floated $1.7 trillion in green bonds. And in order to get this very ambitious agenda off, they're going to float another 15 trillion over the next 30 years, and that's by US dollar trillions. In order to make this happen. There are going to be costs. They have to cut back on the coal. The Paris Climate Accord calls for basically no more coal-fired plants by 2050. I think Xi sees an opportunity or a necessity, I should say, at this point. Remember, it's the UN who said that this is a climate accord, that this is a climate emergency, a catastrophe. Nations must act. I think he's trying to do what he sees as responsible. Remember, this benefits everybody. China used to have the most polluted cities, but now there are cities elsewhere, including in India, which are having these issues. And it's something we have to tackle together.
Yes, I was just going to come to that actually. As we mentioned, the initial months of COVID-19 did prove to be a respite for China in terms of carbon emissions, but coal and cement producers bounced back faster than what was anticipated. How do you assess this?
Well, in terms of bouncing back, yes, there's more production. Obviously, when economies start to come back to normal, there's going to be more emissions. That's true in China, in India, US. It doesn't really matter where you are. So that's not unexpected. But in terms of somehow casting this that China has not fulfilled its promises, as I said before, it is ahead of schedule with its Paris Climate Accord agreements. So at this point, China has a very long history of actually promising and delivering on what it's done, just like with poverty reduction. Last week, she announced they had gotten to the technical level of making sure that no one in China is below that $1.99 per day that the UN has established as the poverty line. But there's still more work to be done in that area.
Yes.
Given its past record, it's probable that China will be able to do this.
All right. And also there have been concerns over lack of short-term plans. Could you tell us about that a little?
Short-term plans in terms of the environment, I don't know that that's true. I mean, they've already put in place the amount of natural gas has skyrocketed. Remember, a year and a half ago, there was shortages because China was taking up so much of it. They promised to have basically non-fossil fuel based of 25%. They're increasing nuclear, solar, wind, also hydro. So they're doing their part to do this. It's an enormous undertaking, as you yourself know. India wants to participate, but China has not said, like many other countries, that it must be uniform across the board. They said each country should do according to its ability to do so, and I think that kind of understanding will go a long way. Notably absent is the United States, which is not really even taking part in this global summit, and is certainly not willing to go along with any kind of global situation. That should change under Biden. He said he will come back to the Paris Climate Accord, and that will be welcomed by all.
All right, Ms. Dangan, thank you so much for joining us with all those details.